chapter. First, what is anatomy and physiology? Anatomy is the study of the structure like what I mean by studying of the structure. So it's a description of how things looks like. So if I want to discuss the anatomy of the stomach, for example, I will tell you that the stomach is connected to the esophagus, and the part of the stomach that will be surrounding the esophagus is called the cardia, or the cardiac region. And the stomach has a dome-shaped part. This is called the fundus. And I have a mid-region. We call this is the body of the stomach. And I have a narrow canal through which the food is going to be passing from the stomach to the small intestine. This is called the pylorus, that has a inside part. This is the pyloric canal, and I have a muscle that will be regulating the passage of the food from the stomach to the small intestine. This is called the pyloric sphincter. So this is a description of structure. This is something that we call the anatomy. How do we describe the structure? We might describe the structure of a region. So for example, I will discuss the structure of the abdomen. So I will tell you, for example, the abdomen is a region below the diaphragm, as the diaphragm is a muscle that separates your chest, and above your chest, above in the chest, we have the lungs and heart. And this is my diaphragm. And below the abdominal cavity, we've got the cavity within the pelvis. We call it the pelvic cavity. So I will discuss the different organs located in here. So I will tell you, for example, this would be the stomach. Here below the diaphragm on the right side, this is going to be the liver. Here on the left, this is going to be the spleen. The continuation here of the tube coming down from the stomach, this is going to be my small intestine that will conduct to the large intestine. So here I'm describing a specific region. So we call this is a regional anatomy. We also might describe something internal from outside. So for example, if I did ask you, this is my arm like this, and I'm taking the blood pressure, let's say. Do I need to remove the skin of the patient I'm taking the blood pressure for, to check where is the artery that I'm measuring the blood pressure in? Do I need to dissect, to remove the skin, remove the muscles to reach this blood vessel, this artery? No, you don't. You know the course of the artery from outside. So you're gonna go directly with your stethoscope. You put the stethoscope on here, directly on the artery, without having to dissect. You know the course. You know the course of the artery from outside. You don't need to perform any dissections. This is what we call surface anatomy. I can describe the anatomical structure from outside without having to see what I'm describing from outside. This is what we call surface anatomy. We also can describe the structure according to the system of organs that share a common function, or they work together to conduct a specific function. Like, for example, we will be discussing the digestive system. So we're going to learn about the different organs that share to allow the digestion to take place. So we're going to start first with teeth, tongue, the pharynx, then the esophagus, and then the stomach, and then the small intestine, large intestine, and then the anal canal and the anus. Also associated with the digestive tract, we're going to need to learn about the accessory organs that we have in here, and those going to be the digestive glands. So we're going to be studying the salivary glands, we're going to be studying the pancreas, we're going to be discussing the liver. So here, although those organs are located in different regions in the body, but we study them all together because they carry on a specific function, which is the digestion. So we're going to be studying them as one system. We call this is a systemic anatomy. So we are describing the structure of a whole system. So can you see the PowerPoint and the blackboard on the side? So for Brent, please double check your connection, or just close and try to rejoin the meeting. If you can't see, if you still can't see, just sign out of Zoom and then rejoin the meeting. All right, so again, anatomy is the study of the structure. We might study the structure of the different body organs in the form of regions from outside, surface anatomy, or as one system, systemic anatomy. Microscopic anatomy is something that we can't see by eye. It's too tiny. Micro is small, and scope means vision. So this is something too small to see with the eye. So we need a microscope in order to illustrate and describe the structure. So we need the microscope to study collections of cells, and a collection of cells of the same type is what we call a tissue. So a tissue is a bunch of cells. When we study the structure of tissues, this is what we call histology. Histo means tissue, and ology is the study of. So studying of tissues is called histology. What if I'm studying the structure of a single cell? See the border of the cell, see the activity of the cell, see the internal structure of the cell. I'm studying here cells. So we call this as cytology. Cyto means cell, ology, study of. So if you study the structure of cells, it's cytology. If you are studying the structure of tissues, this is histology. So why do you think you would need to study the structure of a cell? Why would I think of the structure of the cell? What do you think? In what scenario would you ask your patient to go perform a cytology test, to take few cells and send them to the pathologist, and he's gonna be describing the structure of the cell for you? What do you think? When do you think you're gonna need to study the structure of a cell? Cancers, exactly. Test for cancer. So if a person has a nodule or a mass, and you don't want to take the whole mass out. You want to check if this cells forming this mass is a malignant tumor or a benign tumor. Is this something that will progress? Is this something that will progress affecting the neighbor cells? Or it is something that will be limited? So for example, if I have a discoloration on my skin, this is my skin on here, and I have a dark pigmented region on my skin. And I'm so concerned about this region. I see that it became itchy, it became oozing fluid. So I went to the doctor, and he will be taking it out and send it for the pathologist to look at the cells. Study of cells is cytology. And when he look at the cells, he will tell me whether this is a benign pigmentation, so it is something that you shouldn't worry about, or it's a malignant pigmentation that you need to start looking for any cancerous cells everywhere in the body, because this type of malignancy can spread and can send metastasis. It can send malignant cells to everywhere. It can send malignant cells to the bone marrow, to the brain, to the lungs. So you need to look out for those malignant cells everywhere in the body. So you see on here how the cells would be behaving is going to be manifested in the form of change in structure. So when I study the structure of cells, I'm not only looking for any variation in terms of the structure of the cell, I'm looking also for the change in behavior. So when I identify that there is a change in structure, this gives me an idea about how those cells are behaving. If they are highly active, if they are highly proliferative, they are rapidly dividing, what will I see under the microscope? I will see that cells are continuously proliferating. I will see something like this under the microscope. Cells are rapidly dividing. And if you have an idea here about cancers, what's a definition, the simplest definition of a cancer? This is an uncontrolled cell proliferation, cell division. The cell keeps dividing rapidly to the extent that I can't control. All right, so this is going to be under the microscopic anatomy. Developmental anatomy is the embryology, the study of the development. So for example, I will tell you, I've got one cell that was formed by the fusion of the nucleus of a sperm and the nucleus of an egg. So I formed the very first cells that would become a baby, a zygote. And the zygote here, this cell will be proliferating into a morula, a cluster of cells. And this cluster of cells will be forming 3 layers. And those 3 layers, each of them will give rise to different organs, and how those different organs will be formed. So the heart did look first like this, and then it became 4 separated chambers. So studying of how this single cell did form all those different organs with their specific shape and the different cell types, this what we call the embryology. Here we are studying what? We are studying structure, structural change. So when we study structure, what do we call this? It's anatomy. How about physiology? Physiology, on the other hand, is going to be the study of function. So if we go back to our very first example, when we discussed the anatomy of the stomach, we mentioned that the stomach has cardiac region, it has the fundus, it has the body, it has the pyloric canal, the pyloric sphincter that connects it to the small intestine. So this is a study of structure. How about the physiology of the stomach? I will tell you that the stomach has 3 different types of cells. One cell type is going to be responsible to produce the hydrochloric acid. Another cell type is going to be responsible to produce a digestive enzyme called the pepsinogen. And this pepsinogen is an inactive form that becomes activated into pepsin. And the pepsin is the one that breaks down the protein chains into amino acids that I can absorb and I can utilize in my cells. So you see on here, I'm describing how the stomach works. I will tell you that we have a 3rd type of cells lining the inside of the stomach, and a 3rd type of cells is going to be responsible to produce hormones, and those hormones will affect the motility of the stomach, how the stomach is going to be contracting, and will be enhancing the secretion of the stomach, as well as stimulating other organs, like for example, the gallbladder in the liver to contract and release the biles that will help with the digestion of the fats. So you see here, I'm not describing the structure of the stomach, I'm describing how it conducts its function. So here we are studying physiology. So is the concept here clear between what's anatomy, what's physiology? Anatomy is, again, study of structure. Physiology is a study of function. How are we going to be discussing the anatomy and physiology throughout AP1, and if you're taking AP2 as well? We're going to be using a system-wise way of description. So we're going to start with the anatomy of a specific organ system. For example, we're going to study, let's say, the digestive system in this chapter. So we're going to discuss the anatomy, which includes the description of the teeth, the tongue, the salivary glands, the pharynx, the esophagus, the structure of the stomach, the structure of the small intestine, structure of the large intestine, and associated digestive glands like the liver and pancreas. So here we are studying the anatomy of the digestive system. After we complete the description of the structure, we're going to study the function, how all those organs will work together in a coordinated way to allow you to digest and break down the food. All right, this is going to be the function part. So in some other schools, they will have two separated subjects, one that will be dedicated just to study the anatomy, and the other one is just dedicated to study physiology. But in this course, and if you're taking AP2 as well, you're going to be studying a system-wise pattern. You're gonna be starting first with a description of the structure, and then you're gonna move on to the function of the organ system. All right, so what are the levels of organization in your body? What is the smallest structure that doesn't get broken down by normal means? What is the smallest structure that you know? Atoms. Like what atoms? Like what atoms do you know? This is a very basic structure of any element. So like the carbon atom, the oxygen atom, hydrogen, nitrogen, helium, iron, zinc. All those are elements, and the basic structure of an element is the atom. But those atoms do not exist on their own like this in most of the situations. Atoms are going to be forming together more complex chemical structures that we call the molecules. Like what molecule? Like O2, for example. Like glucose, which is formed of 6 carbons, 12 hydrogens, and 6 oxygens. So I have 6 carbons, 12 hydrogen, and 6 oxygen. All those together will build up 1 glucose. And this is a simple sugar. Those sugar, fats, and proteins that will be formed from those very basic structures, the atoms, will build up the organelles. Like what organelle? Like, for example, your cell membrane. Your cell membrane is going to be formed of fats and proteins. It is mainly formed of phospholipids, in which you're going to have phosphate attached to 2 fatty acids. And I'm formed of millions and millions of those ones that build up my cell membrane. Other structures will be forming the rest of the organelles. So this is the cell membrane of the cell. Other organelles that we're going to be discussing in details later on in chapter 3. All those organelles are formed of chemical compounds that share together to form the internal structure of the cell. And this is the smallest living structure. Cells are the smallest living structures. We have different types of cells. We have, let's say, muscle cells, and those muscle cells have the ability to contract, for example. You don't have single cells located in your different organs, but you're going to have a collection of cells of the same type. A collection of cells of the same type is what we call a tissue. So, for example, if I'm looking at a muscle cell, muscle cells together will build up a muscle tissue. And tissues is what we're going to be studying in details later on in chapter 4. Any organ is not going to be formed of a single type of tissues. Any organ is going to be formed of different types of tissues. Like, for example, a very simple example, and here's that we're looking at a blood vessel. A blood vessel, for example, it's an organ. A blood vessel it's not only formed of a single type of tissues. For example, on the inside of the blood vessel, you're going to have an internal lining that is built up by a type of tissues that we call the epithelium. And in the wall of the vessel, we're going to have muscle cells forming together a smooth muscle tissue. And to the outside of all this, you're going to have collagen fibers and other cells that will build up to form another type of tissues. This is called the connective tissue. So you see on here, this organ is going to be formed of 3 different types of tissues. Together, they will form a single organ, which is a blood vessel, an artery, or a vein. Multiple organs will share together to build up an organ system, a collection of organs that will be responsible to carry on a specific function. So for example, on here, you're going to have the heart and the different types of blood vessels. They will be mainly responsible to carry the blood to the different organs. And I can't conduct the blood just by having heart without blood vessels. I can't conduct the blood to the different organs having blood vessels without heart. So all of them are going to be contributing together to form what we call an organ system. And we call the organ system in here, formed by the heart and the blood vessels, this is going to be the cardiovascular system. Other organ systems will be like the urinary system, for example. I have kidneys, and the kidneys are going to be responsible to filter the blood and extract the toxins in the form of urine. And this urine that will be formed is going to be drained down from the kidneys through muscular tubes. We call those are the ureters. And those droplets of urine will be accumulated within a muscular sac located in the pelvis. This is called the urinary bladder. And the urinary bladder, once filled with urine, is going to be contracting, releasing the urine to the outside through another muscular duct. This is called the urethra. So you see on here, the urinary system is going to be formed of different organs. I have the kidneys, I have the ureters, I have the urinary bladder, and the urethra. Multiple organs sharing together to carry on a specific function. This is an organ system. And we call this organ system, again, it's the urinary system. Other will be including the bones, for example. So all the bones together will form my skeletal system. All the muscles will form my skeletal muscular system. All the digestive organs will share together to carry on the digestion, the breakdown of the food, and the absorption. So we call all of those all of those organs together the digestive system, and so on. So all those organ systems are going to be coordinating together, and they will form you at the end. You are the organism. So again, what are the levels of structural organization of an organism? You started first with atoms, the very basic chemical structure. And then those atoms will form together more complex chemical structures. Those are the molecules. And then the molecules will share together to form organelles that build up cells. And those cells of the same type, will form together a tissue. Multiple tissues will build up an organ, and multiple organs that will be forming together a system is what we're going to call an organ system. Like here's the cardiovascular systems that you see in this diagram. Multiple organ systems will build up the organism. Like what organ systems that we're going to be discussing through this course and also in AP2. First is going to be the integumentary system, skin and its appendages. So why do you think we have skin? Protection, right? Any other ideas? Why? What else? Other than protection? Protection of the underlying organs, yes. Temperature regulation, Any other ideas? So we've got protection, we've got temperature regulation. What do you think? So why protection? Why the skin is helping with protection? It acts as a barrier. So what is the first thing that you're gonna do if you cut your skin? If you have injured your skin, what is the first thing that you're gonna need to do? Decontaminate it, to clean the wounds, sterile. Why? Because you have lost this barrier. So any bacteria can now pass to the internal organs, causing an infection, causing an abscess formation, for example. So you don't want to have this. So the first function is to act as a barrier. It separates the internal environment from the external environment. I'm acting as a barrier between what's inside and what's outside. Another thing that you mentioned is the temperature regulation. So how the body regulates its temperature. So if it's too hot, I have an increase in my body temperature. How would I respond to this increased body temperature? I would sweat. And remember, sweat glands are gonna be located within the skin. So sweat glands, as we're gonna learn later on in chapter 5, they are located in the skin. They filter the blood, releasing the sweat, and this sweat is gonna be cooling down your body. What's another function of the skin? So in case of burns, if I did have a burn that did have that has affected the whole thickness of the skin. So all the thickness of the skin has degenerated. Do I have an initial pain? Do I feel pain at the site of a third-degree burn? Third-degree burn is the type of burn that occupies the whole thickness of the skin. Do I have pain at this specific site where I've got the third-degree burn? Actually, I don't have an initial pain at this specific site. I might have pain later on due to the diffusion of the toxins to the surrounding living tissue. Why I don't? Because simply this is where I have the receptors responsible for the various cutaneous sensations. So in order for me to have a touch sensation, I'm using nerve endings located in my skin for me to feel touch. Pressure, vibration, pain, all those are located in your skin. Those are cutaneous sensations. If I did have a damage occupying the whole thickness of the skin, I won't have this kind of sensations. That's why when we discuss the different types of burn, we're going to mention that third-degree burn won't have an initial pain. So the patient here won't feel an initial pain in the injured site. Because, yes, as Ted says here, the nerves, the terminal nerve endings are damaged. All right. Another, yes, so the pain that the patient will feel is going to be later on because of the diffusion of the toxins here to the surrounding areas, but not at the part that he lost the skin of. All right, does this make sense, Brent? All right, so diffusion of the toxins is one thing. Also, in a third-degree burn, you won't have a third-degree burn and nothing here in the other areas of the skin. So I might have a second-degree burn, first-degree burn associated with it nearby, and those will definitely gonna have pain because they will not be occupying the whole thickness of the skin. Moving on to another organ system, this is going to be the skeletal system. And the skeletal system is going to be formed by the major, by all the bones The main function here will be for protection and for body support. It forms the framework of your body. So try to imagine that you don't have a skeleton, you don't have bones in your body. So you're going to be a bag of organs, soft organs, nothing that will be available to provide you with this kind of support. Protection like skull is protecting the brain, the vertebrae are protecting the spinal cord, the thoracic cage is going to be protecting viable organs like the heart, the lungs, the pelvis is going to be protecting the pelvic organs like the rectum, the urinary bladder, the uterus in females. All those are protected by bones. It also acts as a lever for the muscles to act on to provide you with the ability to move. So for example, if I'm looking here, this is the bone that forms my arm, like this. And those are the two bones that are forming my forearm. In order for me to perform a flexion, flexion means I am reducing the angle of my elbow joint. So I will be contracting what muscle? So I believe all of you will know this. Biceps, exactly. The biceps. So how's the biceps gonna be performing a flexion of your forearm? The biceps is gonna be attached to 2 points. One is gonna be the origin and one is gonna be the insertion. So if you're looking on here, if I have the biceps, but I don't have this bone to which the biceps is attached, will it be able to perform its action? If I don't have anything to pull on, would I be able to perform a movement? What do you think? If I don't have this bone, would the biceps have something to pull on to perform an action? No. So not having bones will not allow you to move because simply the muscles act by pulling the different bones in different directions. So not having bones will not allow you to move. Another very important function of your skeletal system, your bones, is going to be that they act as a stored form of important minerals, and one of the most important of them is going to be the calcium. Calcium, as we're going to learn later on, is going to be essential for you to have a normal cardiac contraction. For your heart to contract normally, you need to have a normal blood calcium levels. In order for your smooth muscles to contract normally, and the smooth muscles are going to be widely distributed in your body, they are located in your blood vessels, the wall of your gastrointestinal tract organs, your stomach, small intestine, esophagus, all those are going to be containing smooth muscles. So for them to contract, you need to have normal levels of calcium. In order for you to normally send an electrical impulse from your brain through the nerve fibers, you need to have normal blood calcium levels. And what's a source of calcium? How do we get calcium from outside? Milk, dairy products. Dairy products, and even non-dairy milk is also rich in calcium. And food, but like very high calcium content is going to be in your dairy products. So who of you didn't get any dairy product for the last few weeks or anything rich in calcium? Any of you didn't get any dairy products in the last few weeks? All right, so you're all good. So you all got some dairy product. All right, so what if you stop taking any dairy products for a few weeks? Would your heart stop contracting? Would your brain stop sending out electrical signals? What do you think? If I decided today I won't be taking any dairy products or anything rich in calcium for the next few weeks, would I stop contracting my heart? Would I have a slowing down of the motility of my gastrointestinal tract? Would all this get affected directly? Would I die within 2-3 weeks? No. Calcium? Yes, exactly. Yes, the blood calcium levels will drop. But where do I get the calcium? I have calcium stores that will increase it back to normal. And where are those calcium stores? They are located in my bones. So I will go and break down the bones, and release the calcium from the bone to my blood. So what's going to happen to my bones as a result? Over time, what happens to my bones? Will they become stronger or weaker in this case? Yeah, they will become weaker. They will deteriorate. This puts me at a risk of developing osteoporosis. Exactly. So is this something good? No, it's not good. But which one would you choose? To die because your heart stopped beating, your nervous system is not conducting electrical signals, to die with strong bones, or to live with weaker bones? Of course, everybody will choose to live with weaker bones, right? And this is what your body will do. Your body will go and break down the bones, releasing the calcium into the blood, maintaining the blood calcium level, maintaining a normal level of blood calcium for your heart to be able to contract, for your nervous system to be capable to send out the electrical signal needed for survival. Another organ systems that we're going to be studying in this course is going to be the muscular system, and this includes your skeletal muscles that will be widely distributed, attached to the different bones, also attached to your skin. The skeletal muscles attached to the skin are the ones that will be responsible for facial expression. And the ones that will be attached to the bones are going to be responsible for maintaining posture and for locomotion, for you to be able to move. Also, another function of the skeletal system will be to generate heat. As we're going to learn later on, that around 60% of the energy consumed by the muscles. So when the muscles contract, they consume a form of energy, a stored energy called ATP. This is the stored form. This is the cellular energy. This ATP, 40% of the energy is going to be in the form of a mechanical work. The movement itself, it's going to be 40% of the consumed energy. And 60% is going to be in the form of heat. that will be generated. So if you are running on a treadmill and the treadmill says that you did burn 100 calories or kilocalories, those 100 calories that you did burn means what? Means that you have performed a movement worth 40 calories. And 60 calories have been liberated in the form of heat. That's why you're gonna be sweating. If you're running, you are generating lots of heat, and in order for your body to reduce its temperature, you're gonna be sweating to keep the body temperature at a normal level. All right? So when would I need to contract my skeletal muscles very rapidly to generate just heat without even the need to perform any kind of movement? If it's too cold. So whenever you have a drop in your body temperature, what you're gonna do, you're gonna be shivering, right? And this successive muscle contraction will be generating heat because the muscle contraction generates heat. 60% of the consumed energy by the muscles is going to be transformed into heat. This generated heat is going to be increasing the body temperature up back to normal. So skeletal muscles here also going to be producing heat. Moving on to two organ systems that act as control centers. Their main function is to control the other organs. First one is going to be the nervous system that will be formed by your brain, spinal cord, and nerves. And the second one is the endocrine system, which is going to be formed of glands. Both are going to be affecting the organs in different ways. The nervous system acts by sending out electrical signals that are traveling through the nerve fibers. So here's the signal I'm sending is going to be electrical signal and travels through wires, nerve fibers. Compared to the endocrine system, I'm formed of glands, like the thyroid gland, for example, like the pancreas. Those are sending not electrical messages, but they are sending chemical messages that get released directly in the bloodstream. So they will be traveling in the blood to reach the organs, not directly connected to the organ by a nerve fiber. So those chemical signals are what we call hormones. Like what? Like, for example, from the pancreas, I am releasing insulin, and the insulin will tell the cells to uptake the glucose, to get the glucose in. So which one is going to be faster to conduct its action? The nervous system or the endocrine system? The one that sends electrical signals, or the ones that will be sending chemical signals that will be released through that will reach the different organs through the blood? Electrical is much faster. So this is faster. Which one is going to be more specific? It targets a specific organ. It won't reach any other one other than this specific organ, your nervous system or the endocrine system. Nervous, you see, I have two ends of the wire. So I'm going to be specific. I'm more specific. It's going to be faster. How about the endocrine system? Endocrine system acts much slower. It's fast, but it's slower than your nervous system. And who gets blood? Who gets blood? Which organs get blood? Which organs in your body get blood? What do you think? All the organs get blood. So those hormones gonna reach which organs? They will reach all the organs. They will reach all the organs. But would I have an action on every single organ? Not essentially. So the hormone will not act on every single organ. It acts only on the cells of the organs that have receptors. So for example, insulin needs to bind to its receptor in order to have an action on this cell. So the way I look at the difference between the nervous system and the endocrine system, I like to compare it to Facebook. So if I'm sending an inbox message to a person, so this message is going to be targeting one specific person or two persons, whatever it's sent to. So it is specific. It's going to be faster to be received. Why is it going to be faster? Because a person will get notified he got a message. So it's much faster. It's going to be more specific. This is the nervous system. How about the endocrine system? It's like posting a status on Facebook. If you post a status on Facebook, it's a message. It's going to be reaching all the different people that you are in contact with on Facebook. So everybody who has access to your news feeds will be able to check your status, right? But not essentially everybody will see it. Only the people who check your news feeds. Only the ones who have a device, who have internet access, those who have receptors. They are following you. Those are the ones that will be able to check your status on Facebook. So it's not specific. It's not targeting one specific person. It's going to be available for everybody in your friends, of your friends, but not essentially everybody will see it. Not everybody will get your message. All right? Does this make sense? So why would I need to have an endocrine system if I already have something specific, something fast? Why would I need endocrine, which is less specific and slower? Does it make sense if I have two control centers? Why I don't just rely on the nervous system and forget about the endocrine system? The key here is the good thing about the endocrine system that it has a prolonged duration. So this signal will affect this person for 1 millisecond. But if I want to grow, would I keep sending electrical signals to every single cell in my body for it to grow for 20 years, for 15 years. Would I do this? No, I need something that will have a prolonged duration of action. So I will be releasing growth hormone, for example. It remains longer in my circulation, having a more prolonged action on my cells for them to grow. So the good thing here about the endocrine system is that it has a prolonged duration of action. It's not an immediate action like in the nervous system. Another organ system, which we won't be discussing in this course, but you're going to be discussing later on in the in AP2. If you're taking AP2, is going to be the cardiovascular system. And the main function here is to allow you to pump the blood, delivering oxygen. And the circulation of the blood allows you also to get rid of the wastes, like the metabolic wastes that result from the chemical reactions taking place in your cells, like the nitrogenous waste, for example, so urea, uric acid, and the byproduct of the cellular respiration. So your cells will consume the oxygen and they will release the carbon dioxide. In order to perform this exchange, you need to perform this exchange at the lungs level and at the organ level. So at the lungs, you're going to be getting rid of the carbon dioxide and get oxygen. And you carry this oxygen to be delivered to the organs. And once I reach the organs, I will give the organs the oxygen and I will carry away the carbon dioxide that resulted from the cellular chemical reactions. All right, so this exchange will not be taking place unless I have something that has the ability to deliver the gases, to deliver the waste products around in my body. So you see on here, this is going to be the function of the heart and blood vessels to pump and allow the circulation of the blood to take place. Lymphatic system and immune system. In the lymphatic circulation is like a service road. This is the way I look at the lymphatic circulation. It's a service road to the main stream. So for example, this is a south side boulevard, and this is the service road. So if you want to slow down, would you slow down in the main street, or would you try to get into the service road on the side? Which one do you think is going to be better, the better approach? You're going to go to the service road on the side, right? If I have a cops that want to stop this car, they will ask them to not stopping here. They will ask them to move to the service road. It's like a circulation, a side circulation, other than the blood, in which I can deal better with pathogens. And this is where the cop's gonna be staying all the time to catch if anybody is speeding, for example. So I will have the cups waiting in this service road. And the cups here in your body, in the body, are gonna be the immune cells. So the immune cells are gonna be waiting in clusters within the lymphoid organs, and this includes the lymph nodes, for example, the spleen. And that's why if you've got a an infection, for example, in one of your teeth, what you're gonna feel, or you get uh, a pharyngitis, an inflammation of the pharynx, what you're gonna have in here, in your neck, you're gonna feel that you have enlarged lymph nodes. Why do I have enlarged lymph nodes in here? Because this is my service road. This is where I will be proliferating the immune cells to attack this pathogen. All right. Is this clear? Clear? We're gonna discuss this the immune system in much more details in AP2. All right. This will take us at least 2 or 3 meetings to discuss the immunity. All right, but the general concept here, is it clear so far? Why do we have this side road, the service road? All right. Respiratory system includes the nasal cavity, the pharynx, larynx, the voice box. This is where I will be producing the sounds from. This is where I got the vocal cords, the trachea, and then I got the branches on here. Those are the bronchi and bronchioles that will end up at the air sacs. Bronchi and bronchioles, along with the air sacs, are building up my lungs. What do you think is going to be the function of the respiratory system? The function here of the respiratory system to allow the gas exchange to take place, increasing the oxygen levels in the blood and reducing the carbon dioxide, allowing this gas exchange to take place. Digestive system, as we've mentioned earlier, is going to be formed of the gastrointestinal tract, starting from the oral cavity all the way to the anus, passing pharynx, esophagus, stomach, small and large intestine. And accessory digestive organs, this includes the salivary glands, for example, the liver, the pancreas, all those going to be sharing in with the digestive tract to break down the food. So what are the functions here of the digestive system? First function is your ability to ingest. So you can't eat through your skin, for example, or through your muscles, or through your brain. You can only eat through your mouth, which is part of the digestive system. So the very first function is your ability to ingest. After I ingest, I need to break down the ingested food to reach a certain chemical structure that my cells can deal with. So I can't deal with large chemical compounds. I need to break those large chemical compounds into very simple forms in order for me to use them at a cellular level. What happens to the remaining part of the food that I've ingested that will not be broken down, that will not be absorbed? I will get rid of it, and this is going to be the last function of the digestive system, is defecation. Urinary system, it's going to be formed of the kidneys, ureters, urinary bladder, and urethra. And again, the function here is to filter the blood, to filter the toxins out of the blood and release it in the urine. Reproductive system, this is formed of the gonads, the testes in males and the ovaries in females, along with other accessory reproductive organs like the penis, for example, the scrotum in males, and the uterus, fallopian tubes, vagina in females. What's the function of the reproductive system? First is going to be the production of gametes, and gametes are special cells that only contain half of the genetic material. So the sperm here has a nucleus, and this nucleus contains only half the number of chromosomes. So how many chromosomes do you have inside each of your cells? You have 46 chromosomes. Where did you get those 46 chromosomes? You've got 23 from your father that were carried in the nucleus of the sperm, and the other 23 chromosomes are going to be in the nucleus of the egg that gets fertilized. So the very first and most important function here of the reproductive system is the production of gametes, those special cells. We cannot reproduce using skin cells, for example. The only cells that can fuse together and produce a cell with a complete set of chromosomes that has the ability to proliferate and grow is going to be the gametes, sperms in males and eggs in females. You see on here, all those organ systems are going to be interconnected. They serve one another, and at the end, they maintain the internal body balance. Any questions? Any questions? All right, we can have a 5 minutes break, and we're gonna have a brief discussion of the metabolism after break. And this will be completing. So we're gonna have after break around 15 minutes discussion, and then we're gonna be done for today. All right. So if you got any question, please type it down in the chatting box for me to check after break. All right, we'll see you in 5. All right, welcome back. Just double checking if you can hear the sound. And you can still see both the PowerPoint and the blackboard on here. All right, great. All right, so we are starting a very important topic here. This is homeostasis. What's home? Home is the environment. So your home is your surrounding, your environment. And stasis means stability. So what can we understand here from homeostasis? This is stability of the environment, but what environment are we talking about? The internal environment, the environment inside the body. This is what we call homeostasis. This is the stability of the internal environment. Like what, for example, like my blood pressure. My blood pressure is 120/80. This is a normal blood pressure. This is my stable blood pressure. What if I run a sprint? What's going to happen to my blood pressure? My blood pressure increases. Will it remain high? Let's say, for example, it goes up to 160/100. Will it remain high for the rest of my life? What do you think? No, it's gonna be reduced back to normal. If it's too hot outside, my body temperature will increase. And as my body temperature increases, my body responds by stimulating the sweat glands. And once the sweat glands are stimulated, I will be sweating. And this will reduce my body temperature back to normal. So I get back to my normal body temperature. So you see on here, it's not 100% stable. So my blood pressure is not all the time 120/80. My body temperature is not all the time stable. It will have an increase and then it's going to be reduced back to normal. It's going to be reduced if it's too cold outside and I will be shivering. I will have the muscle contraction as we've mentioned. And the shivering here causes my body temperature to rise again to normal. So you see on here, it's not 100% stable. It's not something that never changes. That's why we're gonna be calling here homeostasis. It's a relative stability. So by definition, what's homeostasis? This is the maintenance of a relatively stable internal environment. Why do we say relatively stable? Relatively because you might have some increase, you might have some decrease, but you're gonna be trying your best to get back to normal. So for example, your blood glucose level. If this is my blood glucose level, my normal blood glucose level, and I did eat, what's gonna happen to the amount of blood glucose? My blood glucose goes up. How my body responds? It produces insulin. And insulin will do what to this high blood sugar level? It decreases it back to normal. So you see on here how your body responds to maintain a relatively stable internal environment, this is what we call homeostasis. And this will be applied to everything in your body temperature, your blood pressure, your growth, your blood sugar level. Everything is going to be carefully monitored. Your body is going to always be trying to maintain a stable internal environment. Again, it's not 100% stable, it's relatively stable. It's a dynamic process, not a static process. What are the two main control centers that we've discussed? Remember, one that will be like an inbox message, and one that will be like the status on Facebook. Remember, the two control centers that will be allowing you to maintain homeostasis, a relatively stable internal environment, is going to be your endocrine system and your nervous system. So what are the components of the control mechanism? Let's say I had an increase in my body temperature. First thing, you need to know that you have an increase in your body temperature. You need to have a receptor to detect the change taking place in the environment. So what do we call the change in the environment? Change in the environment is what we call a stimulus. So what's a stimulus? It's the change that takes place in the environment. And am I able to detect that there is a change in the environment? Yes. How? By having receptors. I had an increase in my body, in my blood pressure. How would I know that I did have an increase in my blood pressure? I have receptors dedicated to check my blood pressure. And once they detect that there is an increase in the blood pressure, they will get activated. And they will do what? They will send out signals to the control center according to the kind of stimulus. So let's say the increase in the body temperature detected by a stimulus, it sends out signals to my nervous system. This is the control center that I will be sending the signal to. And the control center will decide, yeah, so now I did have an increase in the body temperature, so how will I respond to this increase in the body temperature? I want to stimulate the sweat glands. So the control center will decide which organ it should be stimulating in order for you to maintain a normal body temperature, and it decides that this is a sweat gland. And the sweat glands in this case, it's going to be the effector organs, the ones that's going to have an effect. So you've got an effector organ in here. Once the effector organ gets stimulated, it's going to have a response. And what is the response here is to produce sweat. And what's going to be the effect of the response on my body temperature? It's going to be reducing my body temperature back to normal. So again, what are the components of the control mechanism? First, I've got a stimulus. This is a change that takes place in the environment. Increase in the temperature, increase in the blood pressure, drop in my blood pressure, drop in my blood glucose level, increase in the body temperature, whatever kind of change. I need first to have the ability to detect that there is a change. If you didn't detect that there is a change, how would you respond? If you don't know that your body temperature is increased or your body temperature did drop, how would you respond? You won't be able to. So how do you detect the stimulus? By having receptors. And what is the function of those receptors? They send out signals to the control center. Control centers might be either your nervous system or the endocrine system. In this case, when increased body temperature is going to be the nervous system. Control center will decide what organ should it be stimulating. If I'm talking about, let's say, increase, the stimulus was an increase in my blood glucose level. So I have receptors that will detect, yes, now you have a high blood glucose level. This is not supposed to happen. So the receptors send out signals to my, this case, it's not going to be the central nervous system, it's the nervous system. It's going to be the endocrine system, and to be more specific, it's going to be the pancreas. So the pancreas here is going to be the endocrine gland responsible to respond to this kind of stimulation. The pancreas will decide to do what? Will decide to respond by releasing insulin. And the insulin will do what? Will stimulate the fat cells. This is going to be the effector organ. Those are the fat cells on here. They will be stimulated to uptake the glucose to the inside and store the extra glucose in the form of fat. So now what's going to happen as a result to the blood sugar level? It's going to be decreasing back to normal for me to have a stable blood sugar level. Does this make sense? All right, so for the activity for today, we've already addressed question 1. So please complete here this diagram. The components of a control mechanism. Change in the environment. This is 2. What do we call the change in the environment? This change was detected by structures in your body. What do we call those structures? This is number 3. And those structures will send out through the afferent pathway signals to number 4. What will be receiving the signals from the receptors? And then number 4 will decide what organ it should have an effect on, and it sends out through the efferent pathway the signals that will be stimulating specific organ. What do we call those organs? Those organs will have what as a result of the stimulation that affects the change in the environment. So again, number 2 is what do we call the change in the environment? And then number 3 is what do we call? All right, so let me change the pink in here. So this is the afferent pathway. So this structure will detect the change in the environment. It will send out through the afferent pathway to what center? Then what do we call here the organs that decides how to respond, or the set of organs that will be determining how to respond. And then this set of organs will be sending through the afferent pathway signals to what kind of organs in here that will be performing what. All right, those are now questions 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 that you're going to be answering in the Word document. Again, this Word document you're going to be using every time to answer the different questions as I've shown you at the beginning of the class today. Please make backup copies of this document because it will be uploaded at the end of the semester. Any questions? Any questions for me today? All right, so let me answer this with you. What is the change in the environment? Can you remind me, what did we call the change that takes place in the environment? Stimulus. And then stimulus is going to be detected by receptor. And the receptors will be sending through the afferent pathway to what organs? Control center. So what are the 2 organ systems that act as control centers? Can you remind me? What 2 organ systems will act as control centers? Nervous and endocrine systems, exactly. Control center sends out the through the efferent pathway signals to activate what organs? What organs would I have an effect What organs will have an effect on the stimulus? Effector organs. And effector organs will be performing what? A response. Easy, easy. Anything which is not clear today? Any questions?